Hard Hat Hockey, welcome in. Did you think we forgot about you? Not a chance, folks. We've been stewing on this episode. We just need a little extra time to let it marinate in the crock pot. Okay, I'm lying. I had a little bit of work I had to attend to. Not like I wanted to. I wanted to be here with you all, and I'm so happy to be back with my main man, Grant Miller, coming in hot from a hot wedding out of Canton, Ohio. How'd it go?
It was a phenomenal time. It was a lot of old friends from college. A couple of our guests on the show. We had our Chicago Blackhawks correspondent, Johnny Cates, was there. We've got some other guys that we might potentially throw in. There's a couple friends from Pittsburgh that I got kind of fired up talking a little hockey with. So it was a great time. If you're lucky enough to, be able to kind of have those moments with your friends over the years. Everyone moves to a different city. Guys get promoted. They settle down. It's important to reconnect. It's important to take all the opportunity to get together, have a good time. Great couple, wonderful ceremony, wonderful families come together. Great party afterwards. And before the trip, so before the actual thing got going, had to make that pit stop at Leroy's, Trent. Girlfriend Ashley and I, factored in some time, pulled into Leroy's about 2:30 on Friday afternoon. Trent, the parking lot was packed. It was filled.
As it should be. As it should be.
Love to see it. I had to stop and be like, I gotta check their Facebook to make sure that there's not like a private event, someone's retirement party from the paper mill or something, or Frito-Lay. No, it was just a regular Friday. We got in there, got a little high top table, crushed some wings. Responsibly had one beer, still had a good amount of driving left to do. But it got the weekend started correctly. And then after the ceremony and after the party, Sunday morning, Ashley was like, we got to go Pro Football Hall of Fame because you've never been, I've never been, we're up in Canton a lot. Let's just take this time. So visited a Pro Football Hall of Fame. Had a great time with that. That's cool. If anyone's in the area, growing up in Ohio, I took that for granted, but we went to college 30 minutes from there. I never once went there until the other day. So really enjoyed it. Had a great time there. The guy who created, I'm going to step off away from hockey. I'm trying to really tie this into hockey, but I'll at least tie it into Columbus. Lamar Hunt, father of the AFL, a lot of, sports legend. He created the Columbus Crew here in 1996. I got my photo next to the Lamar Hunt bust in the Hall of Fame. I was wearing my old school Crew jersey because the Crew were playing a playoff game yesterday. I really need to get some good juju flowing for the boys. Trent, brings me no pleasure to report the Crew got upset in the first round, and they are out. So I am now 4 months, no soccer. All the attention is on the Blue Jackets, which could be good and bad. Past couple of years, we've had these moments of kind of down, just different sports overlap differently is what I'm saying. Historically, you go back in the John Tortorella era, this is a great time. We're banking points. Arena's fired up. After that, it was a big dip. It was tough. Gets dark early. If you don't have a sports team to get you through this period, I got a lot of sympathy for you. So we are going to see if the current iteration of the Blue Jackets can get this fired up for the next 4 months and just see what we have here. And I know Trent's itching to talk a little CBJ.
Yeah, we got a lot, including Columbus. We got a lot to talk about and more. Grant brings up a great point about our regional fans across the country. We obviously gave a big shout out to our fans internationally in Germany last episode. That was a lot of fun.
I hope we didn't lose those guys with the missed week.
I'm sure they'll be around. And if they're not, we'll lure them back in right now.
Fellas.
If you or your friends want to be on, we'd love to hear from you. Talk about your respective teams. We'd love to give a shout out and love to all the franchises in the NHL. Contact us on Facebook, Twitter, email hardhathockey1@gmail.com. We'll get back to you. Leave a comment. Spotify, Apple, YouTube channel. We're up on video, obviously, now. So check out all those. Leave us a comment anywhere. We'll get back to you. Tell your friends. We'd love to have you on to talk about your teams. Speaking of regional teams, Grant, I'm rocking a Huntsville Havoc. This is a hockey team in Huntsville, Alabama. I got to be honest with you. It's one of the more fun hockey environments I've ever been to. When I was working down there for a little bit, we went to probably 3 or 4 different games. The barn was packed, sold out every single. I guess season tickets for this team are a hot commodity in Huntsville. No pro sports there, and I mean, people were tailgating outside. The lines were always packed. Every seat was sold out. Every game I went to. Ruckus environment, a lot of fun, and they're pretty good too. So really,
I
really
love
cool
to hear
thing.
that. What was that, East
Yeah.
Coast League or
Not even. It's the
wow?
Southern Professional Hockey League.
I
So
love that. When
yeah,
people talk about, hockey kind of growing, you can look at the numbers, like registered players in Michigan is like higher than like certain provinces in Canada. Like, we've talked about, the development of kind of the youth. Stuff like that really makes a huge difference. And in fact, there's like a regional kind of body or an organization that can just kind of keep the game going. Hopefully that things are running well. Sounds like the Havoc. Is that what the
Huntsville
name is?
Havoc, man.
That's a
You got to
great
get
name too. You get a little HH.
Go Havoc. Go
Oh, yeah.
Havoc. People were
No, that place.
yeah, people were yelling that all the time. Go Havoc.
What was it?
All
I
right.
know you said that it was fired up. Was the arena kind of nice for minor league for what it was? Did you have a good
Yeah, I
time?
think
Yeah.
it's set probably like 8,000.
That's a good amount of people. That's a good amount of people. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was always packed, as I said. So, all right, let's dial it in here. Episode rundown for you. We got our stock market as always. Today, we're going to expand on the stock market a little bit. I want to make sure that these tips are hot and fresh on the plate for you to your liking on what to buy and what to sell. I added a little, it may become its own separate segment, Stat Central. I'm working on the name, maybe Stat Corner. I picked a team in particular that was interesting to me, and we'll talk about them here shortly with the statistical
Stat
breakdown.
Desk. Stat Desk. That might
like
work.
that.
I don't know. We'll workshop it.
Train station, as always. Housekeeping, as always. Got a lot of interesting pieces for news out of the NHL today. And then finally, as always, our hard hats of the week. Scores for today, we got the Kings at the Nashville Predators. Preds are coming off a nice win against the Avs. Go figure. And then you got the New Jersey Devils versus the Edmonton Oilers. Two teams that look to continue on some success. We know McDavid got injured, and I apologize for the squeaks in the background. That would be my Labrador. Her name is Ella. All right, folks.
Got a nice toy there. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's new tennis balls.
Oh, I love them.
Stock market breakdown. Who's hot? Who's not? Grant, we're over the 10-game mark here, and we said on the previous 2 episodes that it's too early to make claims. We didn't have enough data. Now we're past the point of 10 games. We can start to clearly identify trends, positive or negative. Okay. So little narrative breakdown for each division. We'll start with the Atlantic, probably the most contentious, most competitive, probably the best division in the NHL, in my opinion. So with that, the Panthers continue their dominance at 9-3-1 with 19 points, 5 points ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are in second. They're 6-2 playing on the road, being the Florida Panthers. The Toronto Maple Leafs played in a backyard brawl against the St. Louis Blues. If you tune into that, had a lot of fights. Craig Berube was honored in St. Louis. Had a couple injuries that we'll get to as well. They made headlines recently. Looks like Berube had his first encounter with the Core 4 in Toronto, which is no surprise to anybody. That typically makes headlines every single year with the coach and the Core 4 out of Toronto not seeing eye to eye. So I don't know if that's just Toronto media blowing up everything, or if this is in fact consistency that it's just hard to get along with these Core 4 players. I don't know. You got any thoughts there?
I don't think it's hard to get along with those guys. I think just kind of the pressure of Toronto just affects things. Like there's no night off. There's no kind of like we talk about lulls in the calendar and the schedule where, team goes from the Eastern time zone to the Western time zone and it's a road trip and there's a lot of pressure on it. But if your team doesn't do well, you can kind of excuse it, kind of makes sense. You can kind of understand it. That doesn't exist in Toronto. And
Sure.
I just think that's kind of always been in the water there, even when they were really bad, truthfully. But now there is expectation. There's been expectations for about 8 years. And we're just kind of seeing things kind of downwind of that, I think.
And with payrolls on that salary, you would expect a goal differential much higher than what they currently have. They are a +1, which leads me to believe they are hot in the waters for trading prospect Nicholas Robertson. He's been in their program for a long time now, has found his way to being a consistent, healthy scratch. definitely requested a trade over the offseason. So I think a trade involving Robertson is on the horizon here shortly, to stay tuned for that. The Montreal Canadiens are already entertaining trade offers. I think a guy like a Jake Evans to maybe a team who's looking for solidifying down the middle, like a Boston, makes a lot of sense to me.
Would you go in division though? In that, and those two organizations don't like each other.
Very true.
That's always something you got to keep in mind with this.
A team, Jake Evans cap hit doesn't break the bank. I think came around 1.7 million. So a team like Colorado, who's dealing with a lot of forward injuries right now, makes a lot of sense there. So we'll see how it goes. I don't
have the depth chart in front of me. Sorry, I don't have the depth chart in front of me or the cap space. But like, would a team maybe that's like kind of a heightened expectations, like maybe they're getting out to like a stronger start than they thought they would, maybe like a Winnipeg or a Calgary?
Winnipeg could make sense.
You're already in Canada too. You won't have to mess with the work visas.
Right, and taxes and all that. Yeah, you're right. Calgary could make sense. I don't know how committed they are to this current roster.
That's the question for a lot of these teams. Yeah. And I think that's also Trent. I love where we're rolling here, but like, do you think there's like more trade rumors early in the year than there usually are? This feels kind of like a new normal a little bit with the NHL.
I think there's a lot of new trends here, and I'm glad you brought it up. So some themes for today that we're gonna tackle. So more trade rumors are apparent. I think that, and I'm still looking for the stat. I need your help. There's more injuries than I remember.
Oh, 100% there are.
As of today, there are 70 active NHL players that are on the IR. That's a lot.
I mean, do we have any theory? I know going back like 15, 20 years, the conversation was like the ice is too small. These guys are too fast, too strong. And there was also a lot of conversation about like head injuries back then because like Crosby was like the big one that got hit that way. We haven't had a lot of conversation centered around that. But like, I don't like, what do you chalk it up as? It's just the game's just more physical. These guys just get hurt when there is contact. It's harder. I don't know.
I mean, there's something to be said. Like they're going faster. Maybe they're hitting harder.
The speed of the game has definitely gotten like noticeably faster. I mean, obviously in the past, 10 years, but I would even say almost the past like 4 years.
There's a clear trend of more injuries, and I'm looking for the stat of man games missed from year to year, which is basically the culmination of how many games players were absent from this season versus that season. And I think you're going to see a trend of it's only increased. I bring up the Boston Bruins. They're currently a -10 goal differential. This is as of yesterday, so now it's going to be a -8 as they beat the Kraken 2-0. They looked really strong in the first period. I thought they were going to blow it out of the water, kind of slowed down the second and third periods. But definitely a strong statement in Boston that they needed. I wonder if the Wizard of Boston doesn't strike soon with one of these trade acquisitions. We'll see how that goes.
Boston feels like a team that like it's not going to take a lot for them to kind of get it going. Like that game against the Kraken, that might be enough for them to like kind of take off a little bit.
I had to double check the stat. I saw Charlie Coyle's goal on the power play.
God, everyone sent that to me.
Leading up to the power play, Charlie Coyle was a man possessed. He was a man amongst boys out there. And I had to double check my stat. He hadn't registered a goal. He had 1 assist in 12 games and then puts this performance on. So I think that's just a sign of things to come. I'd be hesitant to pull the trigger on any kind of movement if I was Boston, because it has been uncharacteristically bad. And that's actually, spoiler alert, my stat breakdown later on is about the Boston Bruins. So because it's uncharacteristically bad, you would expect that to balance out. Zacha, Charlie Coyle start to come around. I'd sit pretty, but I do look at Boston's always a team willing to move as well, because they never settle for anything less than satisfactory. They're going to make the playoffs.
If they can improve the team in any margin, they're going to do it.
Right, they're very open to that. They have 34 goals for, and that's just ahead of the least goals scored in the Atlantic. So offense has been hard to come by. As we just said, we'll look for that to balance out. Last, though, offensively in the Atlantic are the Detroit Red Wings. Motown is not firing on all cylinders. I wonder if they're a team looking to make a move.
Yeah. this is a little disappointing because we thought the cement was kind of poured for the Yzer plan. I think a lot of teams, I don't know how many people were saying this is a playoff team because like the division has always been so difficult. And that's just the reality of kind of where the NHL is right now. But I think people were expecting better than this.
I agree. They are afloat at 500. They've done a nice job winning a lot of close games, showing their willingness to battle.
That's a good trend.
Yeah, so
keep an eye on that.
They win close games, and that's another team that maybe it balances out offensively, especially with the likes of Patrick Kane. Okay, final wrap up here for the Atlantic Division. Arguably, for me, the most interesting team in the NHL right now are the Ottawa Senators. We talked about their roster with their additions over the offseason. They added David Perron, they have Claude Giroux, and they have this really nice mix of younger players too, like a Josh Norris, Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk is a known quantity. They currently sit in 4th place. They have 42 goals for and are a +9 goal differential. I think this is a team that is trending in the right directions for all the right reasons. I think they sit in 4th because they are in the hardest division. But I think look out for the Ottawa Senators. I got to watch them play against the Avs last week. The Avs were up 5-2 in the 3rd, and then Senators brought it to 5-4 late in the game. Just that willingness to continue to battle. They could have clearly quit in Denver on the road. So
they seem like a tough team to play against. I like the players on their roster. Something about just the vibe of Ottawa and just kind of the branding and something. I'll be honest. You saying like they're interesting? I think they're held back by just the energy around that team sometimes because it is kind of like I don't know. It doesn't have the appeal of maybe a team with kind of being in like a hotbed of hockey that it should. And other people have talked about this where like the arena's pretty far out there. Maybe they don't take full advantage of their windows when they have talented players. Maybe this one will be different. I like where your head is though. From what I've kind of seen limited action of them this year, they seem like very hard to play against, which
hard to play against.
If you can achieve that, you're going to kind of hang around and at least just be annoying for some of those top teams in that division.
And they clearly have a lot of pride in defending home ice. They are 5-1 at home.
That's cool.
Which is a great trend.
Good for them, yeah.
Tim Stützle, we'll talk about Tim and Brady Tkachuk are both near the top in points in the NHL. That's my wrap up for the Atlantic Division in trends. You ready for the Metro?
Let's get it.
Okay. A team with no buyer's remorse from the offseason thus far is the Washington Capitals. This is a team that perhaps may regress given their extremely hot start. Pierre-Luc Dubois has 6 points in 10 games. Still probably want more out of a guy making $8 million, but that is a step in the right direction for a terrible season. That's not nothing. Jacob Chychrun has been noticeable on that blue line playing next to John Carlson. He's a +5, 4 points in 8 games. The New Jersey Devils sit in 2nd place with 16 points. They, however, have played the most games in the league at 14. So that obviously in part due to the first 2 games of the season in Prague. So they'll probably have some days off here. Shout out to Prague, all our listeners over there. The Rangers and the Canes follow close behind those 2 teams with 15 and 14 points respectively, and they both look the part. The Canes are on a nice little win streak here, and the Rangers look like they have Stanley Cup aspirations.
Canes are getting it going. I got to eat crow on the Caps, man. They gave my Jackets a beatdown the other day. I was hoping like the Jets game, I was like, yeah, Jets are playing pretty hot right now. If the Jackets win that, holy hell. But then getting teeth knocked in by the Caps, man, that's maybe, it's tough. That hurt a little bit.
That
hurt the pride a little bit. Yeah.
The Caps are a very hot team right now.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that's going to last, but they are hot nonetheless. The Rangers currently have a +17 goal differential. That is 3rd in the league behind Vegas and Winnipeg. And again, they look the part. Another welcome surprise emerging out of Central Ohio, Grant. The Columbus Blue Jackets continue to maintain a .500 record right in the mix at 5th place. Right there, even with the injuries.
There was a moment before the game Friday where the Jackets held the second wild card, and I just screenshot it on my phone for posterity. Posterity? That's one of those words where you
it's in there.
Keep it alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it felt good again. I gotta say, now last two games have not gone well. Mentioned that with the Caps. They had, again, getting back into this game. I don't go to practices. I don't have the press credentials. Maybe that changes in a year or two. We'll see where my life takes me. But from what I've heard from our beat reporters and the folks that are close to the team that I trust, a very spirited practice today before they hit the plane to the West Coast. Coach Dean Everson not happy about the effort and just kind of the vibe, where I think maybe the guys win two straight, you're feeling a little good. Elvis was had a shutout, and then game prior to that only allowed in one goal, and maybe they got caught dropping the kind of effort level against two really good teams. So it wasn't a lick your wounds and have a decent vibe type of practice. It was one of those you get your ass kicked and you're kind of dreading practice. It sounded like. So we'll see if they respond. I mean, a good road trip. I'm a firm believer of like guys going out to dinner, kind of coming together, have some time on the road. That can really help a locker room, can really get a season turned around. I've seen that happen here in Columbus a time or two. So, takes another good win to get it going. I don't have the expectations that this is a playoff team, but the first 10 games have been exciting. It's been a team that plays very high effort and plays with a kind of a purpose, really. And if Elvis has a decent enough season, I don't think anyone's going to take him with that contract, but it's a positive. And we're talking trade scenarios. Dude, there's some guys having really good seasons that the Jackets might be able to flip for assets. Provorov being top of my list. I'm looking at guys that really have come out of nowhere who were like, I mean, I was ready just to like buy out their contract last year. And now they're producing. And the whole time, like Sean Monahan's like leading this team right now. And it's been very exciting. Maybe some guys are coming back from injuries that we need. I'm saying a lot because we just haven't talked a lot of we haven't been able to kind of unload a lot of this, but recency bias, maybe this team is who we think it is, bottom 10, but big picture, like I love what I'm seeing right now.
Great. I'm looking at the standings right now. I think they're going to be in a fight for a wild card spot all the way to the end. I'm not going to sit here and commit to they're going to make it or not, but I think they're going to be up to the end of the season battling for a wild card spot here. You can't get comfortable in this league, and three teams uncomfortable right now are the three teams that sit below the Blue Jackets: Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Islanders, Philadelphia Flyers. The lights are out in those cities right now. They obviously wish to see more of this holiday season.
I'm shocked by the Islanders. I'm shocked. And like the Jackets beat them 1-0. I like a close game's a close game. I watch that kind of like curious of what happened to the Islanders. Because it wasn't like we were under siege and just like, oh my God, like we're hanging on for dear life. Like it was, and it wasn't even like a back and forth 0-0, like goalie standing on their head. Like it was a weird game, man.
The Islanders always playing weird games, it seems like. However, they are there's probably three teams I look at right now that are seriously battling some bad injury deals, and they're one of them. Lost Anthony Duclair, Adam Pelech, and we'll get to that here shortly. All right, that's my wrap up for the Metro. You ready to go out west?
See if I had anything else in the Metro. I'm not preying on the Pens' downfall. Like it's part of it is kind of a bummer with the guys they are, but like the Pens have caused me so much pain in my life that I'm sorry. Like I respect Sid, I like Gino, but this organization has not managed the last 4 years well at all, and this is what you have now. They're just gonna try to get. They might get lucky on the lottery. They usually do, but dear God,
yeah. All right, let's go to the Central. The Winnipeg Jets currently look the part in first place. They are 11-1 as of last night.
Absurd.
Kyle Connor might be one of the most underrated players in the NHL. In second place of the Minnesota Wild, they're 5-1-1 on the road. The Stars are 5-1 at home, and they sit in third place. Utah in fourth. They are 3-4-3 in their last 10 games, however. Cooled off from the hot start a little bit. I
It
think
cooled off a little bit. It came down to earth.
the injuries on the blue
Yeah.
line to Sean Dursey and John Marino are taking their toll. You're seeing a lot of Sergachev out there. St. Louis looks gritty. They are in 5th place. However, they are going to deal with some injuries that I think are going to move them even lower. Philip Broberg being one of those. He had a great start coming off. As we remember from the offseason, they offered him the offer sheet to bring him over from Edmonton. Kind of a question mark on how that was going to play out. It played out very well out of the gate, and that's going to be a big loss for them on a blue line that needs all the help it can get. Now they're going to be squeezing as much as they can out of an aging blue line with Ryan Suter, Justin Falk, to name a few. We know Torrey Krug is obviously out for the season as well.
That's tough for St. Louis. That's tough.
It is tough. It's a tough position. Injuries, man, can decimate a team. Speaking of injuries, the Colorado Avalanche have been out 6 of their top 9 forwards, and they are in 6th place, as they should be. They followed a 5-game win streak with a 3-game losing streak, still dealing with inconsistent goaltending. Honestly, just trying to stay afloat right now, try to water out in Denver until some of these injuries resolve themselves. You had a guy like Ross Colton who played enormously out of the gate, and then he broke his foot. Valerie Nichushkin is practicing again, but he's not available until the 13th. Lehkonen, maybe, it's just there's all kinds of storylines of players that aren't playing currently. And if the team was actually healthy, that'd be a lot of fun to cheer for. But right now, you just feel like you're watching a team that's just it's hard to take anything seriously because it's
not really the team.
Right, the full roster is on the bench.
You're watching a replacement of kind of the assets that were in place to be built. And everyone does deal with injuries, and not to like make excuses because the Avs are kind of like a top 2 team on this pod, but like this is pretty egregious. Like when you see it on paper, it's like it's dumbfounding. So you're like, yeah, this is what do you take from this other than when you do win games, you're like, well, we can get hot, Yeah.
Well, it's amazing that they're 5-7. This could easily be worse. Jared Bednar currently has a tall order to keep that team.
Do you see a light in the tunnel at all? Is there any guys that are like skating after practice and you're like, maybe in 2 weeks they're back? Or like, is there anything that you're looking at as like, maybe the situation's improving at a slow pace, but at least a pace?
So there's this Russian kid, Nikita Prichapov, who was called up from the minor leagues, Colorado Eagles out of Loveland, and he played his first game against Nashville Friday night. He is I don't have the exact stat, but he's the first 7th round pick to play he was drafted this offseason in the 7th round.
Oh.
And if you know anything about the NHL draft, 7th round picks don't make it to the NHL. They just don't. And this kid was called up because he's been hot in the minors, and he looked the part against Nashville. He was one of the bright spots, man. He played great. I hope he gets more of a shot. It's a guy like that where if we can lean on some energy with a kid like this and survive until some of these players come back, I hope he keeps getting a chance. But until then,
well, that's exciting.
That's kind of what we're grasping at straws. Obviously, we're grasping at Nikita Prichapov. That's where we're at. So, yeah. But I'm all for the kid.
That's what gets you going.
Right.
And these moments.
He looked great. He really did. He was creating chances and definitely some passengers right now, and he was not one of them. So that was good to see.
All right.
Speaking of the Preds, they sit in 7th place. Obviously had a pretty rough start. Kind of changing the tide here of late, kind of evening things out with that obviously massive roster moves that they made this offseason. Struggled to defend Bridgestone, however. They were 3-5 at home. This is as of yesterday. They played tonight, as I stated earlier. Only team in the Central yet to eclipse 30 goals on this season. Again, that's in large part due to the rough start. I do expect that to balance itself out.
It's still very surprising because we talked, I don't know if we say we were high on the Preds, but we were like, there's guys here that could get things done. And so much of the slow start was guys just not getting things done.
Correct.
And I don't know. I almost think the Central is going to be so competitive that I'm not going to say it's too late. I won't write anyone off until at least January. So I'm not there yet, but it's like, it's a little of a bummer.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it, Yeah.
It'll figure itself out. I'm confident Barry Trotz won't let it go south, especially with the investment that they made. Okay, Chicago's the last team in the Central. They are in last place. Pretty similar issues to Nashville and struggling to defend home ice. But Connor Bedard has 12 points in 13 games, so they have that going for them. And frankly, that's all they need to worry about right now. Keep working the young guys.
That is great. I feel silly about their stock the last time we were on the show, and I think they got significantly worse. So Chicago, I'm sorry, that's on me.
All right, let's go to the Pacific Division. Vegas sits in first as the only team with a positive goal differential in that entire division. So that kind of tells you where the stock of all those teams are. Yeah. So everyone else is below 0 in goal differential in the Pacific Division, except for Vegas. The Sharks have struggled to keep the puck out of their own net with 50 goals against. They are in 8th place, naturally. The Kings are in 2nd place in the division with a -1 goal differential. They're currently enjoying their place in the standings, and they have 3 overtime losses helping them to solidify that. I see a little regression happening here for LA soon.
We'll see how it goes. Fair.
The rest of the pack sits within 2 points of each other, all with, like we said, negative goal differentials. So it's wide open. The Canucks, Flames, Oilers, Kraken, Ducks, wide open field here. I don't think any team has really asserted themselves or in one way or another. It's still very much wide open. So
I mean, the Oilers are going to get up there, right? Yeah, I mean, you have to think they're the horse kind of in the pack that's going to find the rail and take off.
Yeah, I would agree. It's so polarizing from last season when it seemed like the entire year there were 3 teams on top in Vegas, Edmonton, and Vancouver, and then the rest of the division you could kind of just forget about.
Yeah, but Edmonton started slow last year. I mean, everyone has to remind everyone right now in hockey, like, hey, remember what happened last year with the Oilers? Like, I guess you just thought they were kind of beyond this. I know it's gotten a little better since the last time we talked, but yeah, I don't know.
I guess I expected coming off the Stanley Cup loss just dominance for the entire season. So that Shaq on me, that's hard to sustain. So I do obviously think that the Oilers have a very legit chance to win the Stanley Cup this year. All right, let's go to our stat corner, our stat desk.
All right.
Whatever we're going to call it.
We'll find them.
Highlighting the Boston Bruins. Okay, so this is before yesterday's game against the Kraken. Very nice win, 2-0 in TD Garden. Again, watch that first period. They were electric all over the ice. They just dominated. They are currently 24th in Corsi 4. As a reminder, that's essentially how much you possess the puck. So 24th in the league, that tells you they haven't possessed it a whole lot versus the teams they're playing against. They're 24th in expected goal differential, aka they are expected to let up way more goals than they score. That sits at -2.77. They are 24th in goals against with 42. Some of that's on the defense. Swayman was also a little bit slow out of the gate here. No doubt missed a lot of training camp. I'm sure that's taking its toll. They are 26 in shots per game at 27 shots on average. 27 at this day and age in 2024, that's a low amount. You know,
that's
the
not
NHL
a lot
has changed. That's not a lot. NHL, it used to be if you're hovering around 30, probably like 10 years ago, that's a good number. Now, you want to see 40, I'd say that's a good offensive night.
Depending on, and some teams are higher than that just based on how they play.
Right. They're 24th in power play percentage at 14%. They have a -10 goal differential. And finally, and this is the big one for me, they are the most penalized team in the league with 148 minutes. Nikita Zadorov leads the team with 23 of those minutes. Elias Lindholm is a -1 with 7 points in 12 games. I highlight those 2 players because those were the big ticket items that they brought in the offseason. Zadorov has been consistent with what we've seen his entire career. He takes a lot of penalties. He takes bad penalties. It's not to say he's not a good player, but I wonder if these guys
are in the box. You're in the box.
Yeah. If these guys are a little miscast right now. Elias Lindholm is a great player. I'd love him in Colorado. Is he a first-line center, though, that can be relied upon? I don't know. Grant, do you think they have buyer's remorse?
I wouldn't go that far yet. Mostly just because I just don't bet against the Bruins at this point in my life. Um, but those are really bad underlying numbers. We call those underlying numbers because they lie beneath the surface of just wins and losses. Um, I think it's early. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about a lot this podcast. Yes, that 10 games is enough to see trends. It's enough for the statistical results to not necessarily be outliers. Um, but you're right. Like, is this a first line guy? Is this, is he going to be able to take all the minutes in the spring when if the games matter right now, you got to get your points. You got to like figure out who you are. But let's be honest, there's certain teams that know that they have a second season in front of them. And granted, the Atlantic is very tight and no playoff spots are given. But the Bruins are the Bruins. And I'm sorry, that's just kind of the case. And we're not talking about the Wild here. Or like I don't know who else in that division. Like there's certain teams that just the flow of their season is going to be different based on expectations of who they are. So they got to kind of start trending. They got to start trending in the right way. You don't have to be a high possession team to win in the NHL.
Sure.
But you got to stay out of the box, and you got to be better at the power play. Teams that don't possess but do end up winning usually have really good power plays. Maybe they have like a stud goalie. Just how they kind of like attack the zone is more advantageous, but that's a little more difficult because just goalies across the league are kind of, I think, are better. But it is an interesting kind of group of statistics. I'm very happy you kind of put that all together because you can kind of see those numbers here and there everywhere with different teams, but just kind of throwing them all out there is really cool. I apologize for I keep turning over my shoulder. I purchased ESPN Plus, Trent, because I want to cover this league
there
better.
We go.
And I put on the ESPN Plus like hockey show. I think we call it In the Crease. Shout out! And I had it on when we started because I just wanted to be able to glance over when Trent was talking, maybe catch a little hockey, just get in the hockey mood. Shout out to ESPN Plus. They now are showing some sort of like film breakdown of the NFL. It has like the all 22 where the camera's super high up and there's like, John Madden X's and O's. So the ESPN, they're just like, yeah, you're autoplay back to football, no matter what.
Always. All right. So I just held the Boston Bruins very accountable. So now I'm going to give you reasons why they don't have buyer's remorse. I agree with you, Grant. I have a lot of faith in this organization, and we'll highlight a different team next week. Boston is going to see solidified play down the middle with Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle. Those guys are going to turn it around, and they're going to solidify themselves, guarantee it. Then you got this kid, Cole Koepke, who, with all those underlying stats that I just said, I think the next closest plus minus was a +1. I got to find out who it was. But Cole Koepke is a +10. He's like nine plus minus points above the next closest player on the Bruins right now. So for all you Boston Bruins, be like Cole Koepke. That guy is setting the example on the ice right now, and this is something you could lean on. Like he's a guy like Mark Kastelik. That whole fourth line we've talked about has been great. Cole Koepke, keep it up. No buyer's remorse.
He's one of our guys, man. From the early offseason days, the primers. We had him highlighted.
Okay, now finally, who am I buying? Who am I selling? Grant, do you want to start? You want me to go?
You got lead it off here, man. You're the guy with money in the hand, ready to make a deal.
All right, I'm selling, and forgive me, I'm selling the Washington Capitals because they have been one of the more fortunate. I don't want to say lucky, but the puck luck has gone their way. So we introduced a new stat 2 shows ago called the PDO. The PDO is a combination of your shooting percentage and your save percentage. This can reflect teams that are playing very fortunate right now. They have the highest PDO in the NHL. Their shooting percentage is also first in the NHL at 14%. That's high. That's due for regression.
That's very high.
Right? And so the last stat here, they are 4th in goals for above expected. So, for example, based on the quality of the shots that they have on the ice right now, let's say they're expected to score 2, but they're scoring 4. That's very opportunistic. Credit to them. They're scoring goals. I just, with those underlying numbers.
Yeah. Hockey is a special sport where like those goals getting across the line are usually earned by just effort and the way you're playing. Maybe kind of old school hockey kind of romanticizes that a little bit. But trends will level out typically. Typically those type of goals you can't count on. You can't count on them every night is the thing. It's not that we're dismissing that or we're saying that shouldn't count. Like, I think we should be clear. Like, Trent and I like these analytics and these underlying numbers because they tell a story. We're not dismissing the end product just because we want to say, like, hey, there's a statistical aberration. It's just that you typically, as the season goes on, cannot count on that every night. And I think that is what we will probably see. I'm not sure what their kind of splits are. Have they played most games at home? I'm not exactly sure. The home ice isn't as important as it used to be, but it's still, I think, something I consider.
Yes, they have. They are 6-1 at home, 2-2 on the road.
That makes sense. So that tracks. It's definitely, if they come back down to earth, the Metro gets even weirder. It's just like who's running. Yeah.
Another reason, like, why I said the Blue Jackets are going to have a fighting chance, and that's another reason why is I think the Washington Capitals, they can't high shooting percentages give me the heebie-jeebies because they're unsustainable. They don't last. And that's not to say the Caps won't make the playoffs. They absolutely could grab a wild card spot here out of a Metro division. That I foresee maybe some success won't be as successful as the rate that they have been. They're 8-3 right now. That's great. So and also great. You made a great point to me the other week about these stocks. You want to catch it before the trend is hot, right? So don't just buy the stock on the best team. Buy a trending team. Okay? You got a stock you want to sell before I buy?
I'm not selling anything this week. Like I said, haven't been able to do a ton of my homework, but I do got to buy that. Hopefully, I'm not too late on.
Okay, I'm gonna buy the Ottawa Senators. So we talked about the puck luck stat. They are 25th in the puck luck stat. So they've on average been unlucky, yet they still stand at 6-5 and with good underlying numbers that we talked about earlier. They've yielded 2.26 goals above expected, aka their goaltending hasn't been up to par. Lot to do with kind of the question marks behind Linus Ullmark's absences. That was a weird trend there for a little bit. Was he hurt? Was he not? He was warming up, but then he would disappear from the pregame, and then ultimately wasn't starting. That. Yeah. So kind of, I think as we see Linus Ullmark play more, get settled in, play like we know he can, I think this number goes down. They let up fewer goals. They get luckier with their shots. Tim Stützle is 8th in the NHL right now with 16 points. Brady Tkachuk is 12th with 15 points. So they have guys who are high flying and ready to go, and I think that's going to reap rewards here soon.
We will keep an eye on them, certainly. Yeah. I'm buying the Canes because I think this is when the Canes make their move. Just Canes hockey, I think it's just coming together. I hope I didn't get in there too late. But caught a couple game recaps of them while I was in the hotel this weekend, just trying to kind of catch, as much hockey as I can. It's Canes hockey. It's high possession. It's pucks in net. And I think it's coming. I think it's now is where we're going to see them. We're talking about teams in the Metro kind of finding their level, teams coming down, teams coming up. Wouldn't be shocked to see the Canes kind of get a top 2 spot.
It seems
really
like
cement it.
Yeah, they're putting a cinder block on the gas pedal right now. Rob Brindamore has the Caniacs dialed, and boy, are they glad they didn't trade Marty Necas over the offseason. He is in fuego.
Yeah, he's maybe he's playing a little pissed.
Maybe he's playing a little pissed off. I don't blame him. I like that. Yeah. All right, Grant, let's go to NHL housekeeping. Got some injuries out of the gate we're going to talk about. We'll get through those quickly, and then I got some hot topics here that I know you're going to want to chew on uh,
Okay.
for an extended period. Some things fun, some things not so fun. But I'm definitely going to value your opinions. Okay, Anthony Duclair. We mentioned the Islanders' struggles. This is definitely he was brought in the offseason, expected to be a top line guy. He's out 4 to 6 weeks.
He's a game changer, and losing
Sure.
him is not easy because you take a little spark out of the game.
Matt Barzal out 4 to 6 weeks with an upper body injury.
He's
Islanders.
very important for what they do. Yeah.
He's probably their best player. Adam Pelech is out 4 to 6 weeks with an upper body injury, also with the Isles. So there's no secret here. The Isles are a little depleted, little depleted in Long Island right now. Victor Olofsson is out week to week with the lower body injury out of Vegas. They seem to be doing okay. Wish him a healthy return. Robert Thomas, St. Louis Blues. He'll be reevaluated in 6 weeks after a broken ankle. I'm sensing a trend here in the Isles, the Blues, the abs injuries. That's always fun. Philip Broberg, we mentioned earlier, he's out 4 to 6 weeks. 9 points in 12 games and is a +6. I mentioned his stats because on a blue line right now in St. Louis, he was a bright spot, and that was a great move bringing him on that offer sheet in the offseason. So that's a bummer. And then Connor McDavid out 2 to 3 weeks with an ankle injury. Obviously, this is a big one. Probably the best player in the NHL.
Saw it happen against Columbus. Wasn't in the barn for it, but entered the zone. Zach Werenski had his stick out there and tripped Connor, went uncalled. It wasn't like a malicious, like a slash or anything, but it was still like just a sloppy play near the boards, near the blue line where a lot of weird stuff always happens. Connor fell, crashed into the boards, and his like left ankle was essentially the first thing to hit the board. So that's tough. I mean, it's brutal. You hate to see this happen. It does happen a lot. Guys take spills like that, and sometimes they're not hurt. Other times it's really brutal. The way he went down was a little like, ooh, hope that's not too much. 2 to 3, I think, is like, if you're an Oilers fan, you're probably breathing like a sigh of relief a little bit. Honestly, just the way it went down, I thought it was going to be worse. I thought the conversation around this was going to be like way more difficult than it is.
Yeah, I would expect Draisaitl and the rest of that roster to right the ship in his absence. I think they'll be just fine.
It's early enough that you can get past an injury like this, you know?
Yeah.
Because if it's later in the year, you're asking him to probably like come back too early, play through it, to get like, it's early enough where it's like, dude, get healthy. Like, it's not like, it's going to be okay. It's unfortunate, but you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ross Colton's out 6 to 8 weeks with a broken foot out of Colorado. This is where I made my note. We kind of talked about it earlier. 70 players currently listed as injured in the NHL. These aren't minor leaguers. These are all active players on active rosters. 70 seems like a lot for, on average, 12 games into the season. So keep an eye on it. It's a lot.
It's brutal. And maybe it goes back to what we talked about like a couple episodes ago. I like the preseason like weirdly being more intense. Maybe these guys were just going like too hard out of the gate, and there was some like overflow of that into the regular season. I don't know. It's weird. I don't like it. The players, I mean, like the game is better when everyone's like on the ice. Like certain injuries are going to happen. Like it's a physical sport, but this is like getting to a point where it's hard. Like what Trent's kind of been saying, it's hard to take things from a lot of these games. Like the Jackets beat Edmonton in that game. Yeah, I'm happy my team won. I don't think the Jackets are better than the Oilers. It'd be crazy to think that. So, like, what do you take from a lot of these results if, half of Colorado isn't even suited up?
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I'm going to strategically move the hottest item to the bottom here, and we'll get through. So, news around the league. As we know, Fanatics took over the branding for the jerseys this past season. Not as well received, I would say. It's probably some inconsistent reviews with the quality of the product of Fanatics taking over. However, they have partnered with Lululemon. So check that out. Go check out those websites. A new line of Lululemon NHL gear. And I was perusing through. It's pretty cool stuff. So Christmas gifts, birthdays coming up. It's some nice quality clothing there with the NHL branding.
And it was limited to the teams. I think there's like a limited amount for this year. The next year, they're hoping to roll out all 32.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those teams that got their gear, good on you.
So the
Jackets were not selected.
News out of Denver. Colorado Avs announced the city council has approved a 55-acre arena district. It'll be 10 to 12 million square feet. It will include bars, restaurants, and here's the kicker, thousands of new residential high-rise units. Okay, initial thoughts. From just a pure hockey perspective, this seems to be the direction that every team is going. The big, luxurious arena districts.
You got to have a neighborhood around.
Right, big economical. Yeah, for the city, this is a great thing. I can say, having been a longtime resident of Denver, adding thousands of residential high-rise units to a city that already has thousands of residential high-rise units is only going to add to the density of an already very dense and jam-packed downtown area. Those who brave the commute on I-20, I don't remember if it's I-20 or I-25, that highway that cuts straight through downtown going north-south, you know what I'm talking about if you live there. This is going to add to your commute. So be prepared for that.
Well, maybe everyone works from home now. I don't know.
Maybe
don't think of it from a traffic standpoint. I just look at it from this way. A lot of people are still moving to Denver. I mean, when we were in college, it felt like that was the absolute spot to be once you graduated. Maybe that's cooled off a little bit in the past 5 years, but I still think Denver is one of those cities where you can always build more units and there's going to be demand for it.
Absolutely.
Nashville is similar to that. Chicago's similar to that. Houston, Dallas. There's just this like outside of New York, LA, there's these cities usually in the middle of the country, kind of regional bases for people that can always be building. Now, Trent, I asked this from a Avs fan and a Denver resident. The area around the stadium, what's it like right now? Is it like parking lots? Is it old buildings that aren't in use? Like, what's the current landscape that this is looking to replace?
The Ball Arena and Empower Field for the Broncos, for those who aren't tracking, are kind of displaced. I don't want to, strategically, I would say almost by accident. And it's not a very congested part of downtown. It's very much removed from the high rises. Still a part of downtown, quote unquote, but removed enough to where like those two stadiums and arenas sit alone. Like you can see them clearly on the skyline. Whereas
Philadelphia is like that with their
exactly
like where the link is. Yeah.
Yep.
That was the model of city development for a long time because you needed parking around your large venues, and usually needed parking. You needed to be a little bit outside the city center. That's going to change with consumer interest. People kind of want to be able to live and walk directly to these places. They also, if people do drive in, they want to be able to get dinner. They want to do drinks after. They want to do drinks before. They want to kind of make it. Everyone's trying to recreate Wrigleyville, basically. And then from the owner's standpoint, and Stan Kroenke, Kroenke owns the Avs, but he doesn't own the Broncos, correct? Yeah,
correct.
He owns the Rams. So he owns the Rams. They built SoFi in Irving, California, I believe is the technical term, suburb of LA. He also did this with the Rams, which was build up a neighborhood around it, which as the kind of developer and owner of the real estate, he basically gets to collect rent from everybody for 30 years. And that finances the whole operation on top of ticket sales, on top of commercial revenue. It's crazy to me that it kind of took this long for owners to realize, like, hey, if you spend an extra $250 million to do apartments on top of this, the revenue you generate from rent, and then people will pay a premium to be in an entertainment district. There'll be people that pay extra to be closer to the Avs, be close to the Broncos. So it's so Stan Kroenke is one of the richest human beings in the world. I'm not saying like, oh, this is such great business. Like he's rich enough, he doesn't need any more money. I think there is a level of like, if you're a Denver sports fan, you're probably excited about his investment because for the past couple of years, like the Denver side of his portfolio has been pretty low down in priority compared to the Rams, and then his soccer team in London Arsenal, where he's fucking hated over there too. So I think teams that do this usually do see like a benefit. I'm glad that there's still, I know you said it's kind of like offset from downtown, but like the other team that did this and it kind of was weird was the Atlanta Braves in baseball, where they moved out of Atlanta. They're in like a different city. It's Atlanta metro area, but not Atlanta proper. They wanted a neighborhood. They wanted to be able to charge a restaurant commercial rent so that they could extract more money to pay for the whole operation. And financially, it's been a benefit to them. But as someone who's visited Atlanta, there's something missing when one of your sports teams is really far from everything. So I think this is net positive for the Avs. How's that arena looking these days? Do you think this will be like step one in some minor renovations? Like maybe some of that flows into it. New jumbotron, new locker room, that sort of thing.
Well, the jumbotron's actually is probably the newest part of the arena.
Okay, well that's good. You gotta get that. You gotta pay big money for that.
Yeah,
as soon
they
as
enlarged it. They installed those massive screens probably like 5 years back. So those are relatively new. The whole arena itself could probably like 10 years ago, I would say it was the Pepsi Center. Would probably considered like one of the nicer or newer arenas. Now, obviously, like Detroit's built a new one.
Yeah.
Other teams have
Edmonton's got a real nice one.
Edmonton, yeah, exactly. So it could probably use a little facelift, but it's far from being run down, I would say. So like you said, overall, I think this, like, the city of Denver is going to be excited about this. I think this is a net positive. I think I mentioned the residential high-rise units because I know this is going to poke the bear of some longtime Colorado natives who are the Grizzly Bears, right? They've been there a long time and they've seen the city of Denver as they remembered it in the 80s and 90s. Now it's completely different, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
It's exploded.
It was prior to the Rockies getting there. I mean, it was an entirely different city. But I think the Avs, they're been the success they've had helps this too. Sure. When your team's bad, and I don't know if Kroenke's getting like any sort of public money to finance this. He probably is for like water and electric, which people kind of jump on. People say no public money towards development, which I understand. That's a very quick kind of talking point, but you don't want private industry spending the money on water and electric because they'll cut corners. You actually want that to be publicly funded, so there's a level of oversight to make sure that the actual necessary infrastructure is done correctly. So that's a part we're kind of getting into my wheelhouse with this stuff. But I think the fact that the Avs are pretty decent helps this. If you compare that to what's going on with the football team, my beloved Cleveland Browns are asking the state and the city for a lot of money while they're absolute garbage. So you hate to see that.
So another team that's making a renovation, if you call it, the New York Islanders are partnering with a company called Viam. It's an AI company that is being brought in to improve the fan experience at UBS Arena. Essentially, what this is going to be is like if you've been to Disney recently, they have apps that tell you where the shortest lines are. And so this app, while watching the Islanders game, is going to tell you when I go in to register my ticket, what's the shortest line to get into the arena? What concession stand has the fastest time right now? What concession stand offers this beer versus that beer? What bathroom line is smaller than the one on this side? It will be a much more efficient experience for fans. And I think it's a really cool upgrade that a lot of franchises will likely look to follow.
I don't hate this. I'm very against AI as a concept. I actually think it's kind of like a dead end. I don't see it having too much commercial usefulness. But I have seen similar technology for like airports with like TSA wait times that are usually pretty accurate. I imagine if you have kids, this is also pretty helpful because you're trying to just like make the most out of your time. If you're a 26-year-old dude and you're on the app trying to figure out what the fastest beer line is, though, dude, I gotta say, like, part of it, you just gotta trust your gut. You just gotta know what beer you want. You gotta know your arena. You gotta know your staff. Here's a little tip to the young guys out there: those folks pouring those beers, make friends with them, because you'll see them. You build a good relationship over the years. I have a couple vendors at both Nationwide Arena and Lower.com field that I'm really tight with. Maybe I spend too much time in the beer lines. That's a different conversation. Be cool with those people, and that'll shorten the time. You don't need AI for that. But
to your point, Grant, I've gotten some free, more than one free drink at the Coors Light bar at Ball Arena, but
absolutely
just by what you just said. So
yeah, I'm curious of the technology that is used to make sure that the bathrooms are short. That kind of scares me. I imagine it's just kind of like similar technology to like parking garages where it can just like notice when something passes through. But I don't want too much AI in the bathroom. That worries me.
That makes sense. All right, Spittin' Chicklets, famous podcast and entertainment
the boys
group, the boys. They did a special on YouTube. You can check it out. It's called Chicklets University. It seems like maybe a new segment that they're incorporating, going around looking at different hockey programs in the college hockey landscape. This past week, they featured West Point hockey. Really cool 25-minute episode on YouTube. Go check that out. Explores all the ins and outs of being a hockey player at West Point and everything that comes along with that commitment, obviously. So really, really cool watch.
Definitely recommend it. I didn't know West Point had hockey. I apologize. That was a blind spot. College hockey's grown a lot over the years, which is great for the game and great for this country and great for the guys. It's just still hard to keep track of all the different programs.
Play in Atlantic Coast, but it's Air Force is in there. Sacred Heart is in there. I want to say RIT.
Is Union in there?
I think they might be in there. Yeah.
No, that's cool. It's a cool video. Trent sent it to me. I recommend it. Those guys do a great job telling the story. Good production value. They always get a good amount of personality. It's hard to get personality kind of moments out of cadets. They're so locked in. But it was a really cool video.
My final point before we get to our big steak to chew on, the Anaheim Ducks, this is the first I was exposed to it, in their pregame show, they're now utilizing, and I don't know if this is new this year or last year. I don't know. If you're from Anaheim, let me know. They've got 3 animatronic massive ducks flying in a flying V formation, homage to all the movies, in the pregame show, flying around the arena. That is so cool. It's not really, it's just something I noticed, and I just wanted to add it in here at production value. Wow. I was very impressed.
I'll have to check it out. I'll have to check this out. This is news to me.
I was pretty jacked up watching the Ducks pregame. That was really cool.
That's much cooler than what they do in Pittsburgh, where it's an inflatable light bulb going around because it's like their electric company.
Oh,
so, yeah. So go. I mean, the duck is cooler than the light bulb.
Yeah, well, it's not just one duck; it's a formation, whole formation. Okay, Grant, let's get to the steak here. Frozen Frenzy. Frozen Frenzy started last year. It's basically a concept where every team in the league plays on one day. This year's Frozen Frenzy was on October 22nd. All 32 teams played over 7 hours of action covering ESPN, ESPN2, and TNT. The viewership for Frozen Frenzy from last year to this year is down significantly. Now, I don't love the decision out of the gate because they competed. They chose to do Frozen Frenzy on the same night of the NBA season. Why?
Opening night, tip off.
Opening night of the NBA.
So it was like Celtics were raising their banner. I believe it was a Tuesday night, correct? Or was it a Wednesday? Okay,
it was a Tuesday night.
Okay, I know they don't want to compete with Monday Night Football. I get that. But if you're looking at like beginning of the week in the schedule, if you have the chance to not go up against the other big winter sport, because there's a line of thinking that like football fans are just going to watch football. It's baked in. It's 20 million. What are you going to do? Like that felt like a better choice than opening night for the NBA. I think there's I think there's a market for this. I think there is a way you can do a whip around show for all games. That was the other part of this. I believe it was ESPN was doing essentially kind of like NFL Red Zone, but for hockey. Now, there's not complete one-to-one translations because NFL Red Zone is a team's about to score because they're going closer to the field. It cuts into that game. You see the finish of the drive. It then goes to the next game that is closest to an end zone. That's the red zone concept. Can't really do that with hockey because the game's so fast-paced.
You could do
power plays. There are, if you have smart hockey people, the production staff, which ESPN does have, I think we kind of dunk on ESPN a little bit, but there are people you can see trends of a game and say this team is in the zone for 30 seconds and they've got a bunch of shots. Go there. You can finagle the feed usually to where maybe you go to a game 40 seconds behind real time, so you can let something play out, see that it was a highlight, go to it. The viewer at home sees what happened 50 seconds ago, but because you're seeing ahead of time, the production and the team at ESPN knows they're going to see something different. There's a way to do that. I don't know if Disney's going to spend the money to do that and put the oomph behind it, but you can make the viewer experience tailored to excitement and things happening. Now,
all right, chew on some underlying numbers here. Okay.
Lay out the numbers because
kind of disturbing. So ESPN and TNT's nightly average from this point last season is down 29%. This according to Puck Report. And then HockeyReport.com just published an article reflecting those exact same trends and talked about reasons why. Two in particular: massive rise in illegal streams, and that massive rise in illegal streams credited to massive amounts of regional blackouts around the entire country.
Which is something we've talked about at length. If you're, a fan living in Chicago right now, it's very hard to watch the Blackhawks. You can't just give the NHL or ESPN in this and you can't just give ESPN $20 a month and watch your team.
This is all over the country though. This is Canada too. They were talking about Montreal and specifically.
And if you're going to illegally stream your own team in your own backyard because that's who you want to watch the most, you're not then going to also pay $20 to watch the out-of-market teams legally because you already know how to stream your team. So if you do have the itch to watch hockey outside of your own team, which most hockey fans do, I think that's a cool part of the sport. I love the Blue Jackets, but I love the sport as a whole. That's not really true for every other sport. I don't watch a lot of NFL outside of the Browns. I don't watch a lot of baseball outside of the Reds.
Same.
I'll watch a lot of hockey. That's why we do the show. That's why we love this.
Same.
So if I'm illegally streaming, which I don't think anyone should feel bad for in this day and age, honestly, I'm not going to shame anyone that does that route. It's a pain in the ass. Usually it skews a little younger, skews a little more tech savvy than I am personally. But if that's how you're doing it, you're going to do it for every other game. So, yeah, I think the NHL is leaving viewers on the table, and that's going to hurt the bottom line. But this is a bigger issue because I don't know how you get out of the regional agreements for some of these organizations that it's going very well for. Certain teams have very good relationships with their regional broadcasters. Then you factor Canada. Canada has a whole different set of legal rules and agreements. And like TSN and Sportsnet, they're never going to part with the TV deals they have with the Canadian teams because that is so lucrative for them. Like that's keeping so much of the lights on for those parent networks. So I think the NHL is probably in a difficult spot. I don't know how they figure this out. I was very excited for the ESPN and the TNT deals, and I still kind of am, generally speaking, if you compare that to like where we were at with the NBC. But I think the shininess is kind of wearing off a little bit with those deals, kind of the newness of it. I think that's going to be reflected in those numbers.
The bottom line for me, Grant, with all these TV issues that it feels like we've been talking about now for months, is the fans are not valued in the way that they should be. And that's the bottom line. And if you continue to create a product that is hard to view, you're going to lose fans. And at the end of the day, the value of the league is measured by the passion of your fans. And if you continue to make it a secondary priority, you're going to have a secondary product.
I agree with you. We are 100% on the same page here. What I will say is every fan is valuable. But if the NHL were to somehow create a new deal with like Amazon or Apple, we use Apple as an example with the MLS. And I know some people probably hate how much I talk about soccer, but what happened with MLS is they grabbed all of the TV rights, every single right, every player, every team, not every player, every team, the whole league, put it all on Apple TV. Got rid of blackouts, so you can watch every game in every market, but it's all under Apple. If the NHL did that, that would negate that relationship that fans have in markets like DC, where the Capitals are pretty easy to watch, from my understanding. Boston, we always talk about with Nesson. So you're right. There are some markets that are left in the dark, and that is awful, and that's a huge problem. But if the NHL were to take the Rangers off of MSG, New York, the fan base, the TV market, would be forced to migrate to a separate platform that is not associated with their team. So what about their eyeballs? That's kind of the part of this. That is, the teams that are on the FanDuel Sports Network, they're begging for something different. But you have usually legacy markets like DC, Boston, New York, Toronto, that are just in a different position. And they're probably the ones with the highest viewership. Buffalo too, I'd probably throw in there. And I don't know how the NHL is really going to figure that out.
Certainly something to chew on. I'm sure Gary Bettman is racking his brain behind closed doors. So we'll see how it plays out.
And I'm sorry to keep going. That was a big part of his expansion. He wanted to be in Arizona because the TV market is huge.
Right.
He wanted to be in Nashville because that's a huge area. And now, obviously, Arizona's in Utah. It's a whole other thing. But like, if the TV markets aren't producing viewers, then what are we really doing here? What is the conversation of what a popular hockey city is? And does it ever start to affect in-person attendance? That's when it's like disaster.
Right. That would be a bad day. At the end of the day, I think we can all settle on the fact that every person should be able to easily watch their team at a minimum. And if not, continue to watch other teams across the nation.
I agree. It shouldn't be such a pain in the ass.
Right. All right. That wraps it up for the news of the week. Trent, you ready for the hard hats?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Hard hats of the week are sponsored by Leroy's Bar. Located in the heart of Worcester, Ohio, Leroy's establishment has provided cheap pitchers and a safe haven for all of the Fighting Scots of Worcester since 1969. Make your reservations today. Sounded like maybe needed some this weekend, Grant, with the parking lot there.
That phone was ringing off the hook when I was in there. People were asking about wait times and if there was tables.
That's awesome. My hard hat of the week, we touched on some college hockey earlier. I'm going to stay right in that alley. Nothing specific here. The Denver Pios, coming off of a national championship last season, have continued that run. They are 6-0 to start the season. So let's go Pios.
Let's go Pios. Mine's a little late. I'm sorry to the fans that tune in here. I had this queued up for when we did the last show because it was so special to me. I'm not sure if I should be taking this back after the last couple of games, but I'm giving this to my guy, Elvis Merzlikins. He had a shutout, and he held Edmonton to 1 goal. If Elvis is back, the Jackets are back. I want him to be back. I've been a big Elvis guy for a long time since he's been in the organization. Got my eyes on this West Coast swing. A lot of crazy stuff happening in other sports that I'm dealing with. But all eyes on the CBJ, and I can't wait to kind of see what he's got going. He earned the donkey after the game against the Islanders. And I know that the Jackets took a bit of a step back, but I got my eyes on 90, man. I hope we got something here.
I love it. Folks, as always, we love you guys. I can't imagine anything else you're going to want to stay tuned with across the country this week. So just watch this episode. There's nothing else entertaining going on. We hope you enjoy it. Reach out to us, and we will see you next week as always. See ya.